Right, moving over to rugby, the Carling Champions match takes place this afternoon at Loftus Versfeld, where a South African side will host Kenya. The South African side will consist of provincial players, with the Bulls having the most representatives in that team. It will also see the return of a limited number of fans. To speak more on this, we're joined via Zoom by former Bulls and Cheetahs flyhalf Kennedy Tsimba. But Kennedy, thank you so much for your time. Good morning to you. Quickly tell us, for the benefit of our viewers, what is the importance of this match, and also why specifically have we started with Kenya?
Okay, good morning to you and your viewers. It's very important in terms of just the growth of the game on the continent, and we can see that what COVID has done, it has almost isolated a lot of countries in terms of, like New Zealand. They're only now focusing on what Australia and all those little countries, Samoa and Fiji, are doing. So it's quite important that South Africa doesn't isolate their neighbors and, you know, their fellow Africans, because going ahead, these could be the teams that you end up having to play competitions against. So it's a first step in a long journey, of course, but it also gives these African teams a platform to be able to play on stadiums and also play against players that are professional players.
I was actually going to ask you, now when you've said it's important for us not to isolate ourselves, this, of course, is an exhibition match and a first of its kind. Do you think, then, we can see more of these in the future? I mean, we already know some of the other countries in Africa, the likes of Namibia, Uganda as well, they do play rugby as well. Do you think we can see more of these happening?
Yes, of course, and not to forget that, funny enough, today as well, the Zimbabwe is playing at the Cheetah Stadium in Bloemfontein at the same time. So these exhibition matches are obviously going to start, coming up, and it's quite important because all of these teams are also trying to qualify to play in the World Cup. So Namibia, as you mentioned, Kenya and Zimbabwe are probably the front runners to be able to represent Africa along with South Africa. So it's quite important that they start playing each other more often and not wait for Namibia to play South Africa at a World Cup. It's too big a gap. So these kind of exhibition matches are very, very important.
So, but Kenny, of course, this is history in the making. It's the first of its kind in local rugby, in that the fans are the ones that went ahead and chose who the team is going to be. I quite like this type of engagement. What's your take of this switch in terms of the fan interaction?
Yeah, well, if you're a player, it's not the best situation, because if you get voted in, then you've done well. But if not, you start wondering, what have I been doing wrong? But it is a great concept, and I've seen it working quite well. Although it's set up in the WWE wrestling type of scenario, they did that, and it worked very well because it brings the fan much closer, and they are always asking to see the best players, and here's a chance for them to be able to combine and do that. And what is also good is that, some of our players who aren't used to getting selected for the Springboks or teams like that, this helps you to be able to gel with players that you're not used to playing with, and understand how do you become a team. And it's just part of that process in case they have to join the Springbok squad or whatever it is. They're used to having to play with other players.
And I think if you haven't previously been selected for the Boks, the fans have now selected you. So I think it boosts your confidence as well. So speaking about the players, in terms of the squad that we're going to see playing today, are there any names that stood out to you that were a bit interesting, considering that this wasn't, the usual squad selection process?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's difficult to even name one or two, because you've almost got all of the fans have got a pretty similar take on which players that they generally like and have performed over the Currie Cup season. And obviously you've got some of the players that might be injured. But for me, what has been interesting is obviously their opponents. Just looking at them, because there's a lot of Olympic winners that came from the Olympics that will be also gracing it. So it being an occasion, a big occasion in terms of the first crowds being allowed back in the stadium, it's quite fitting, and it's also fresh, to put it in those two words.
But Kennedy, talk to me about the importance of vaccinating. Just before we got on air, I was actually on the Bulls Facebook page and they put a picture of two ladies. Those are the first two fans that have walked into their stadium since, the beginning of COVID. So it is quite nice to see. As you know, it's a limited amount of fans that are coming in. So talk to us about the importance of vaccinating so that in future we can see that number, which I think is currently at 2,000, increase and be a higher number.
Yeah, and I think it's part of that engagement and also making the public aware and understanding the importance of vaccination. And for those who, and I think there's a huge urge for a lot of spectators that used to go out and watch rugby because of the past 2 years, you've had to stay at home. There's a big hunger to be able to go and engage. And a rugby outing is quite a unique. It's a great experience. And if you haven't been there, you need to go there. If you have, you'll miss going there. And that's why I think that the vaccination drive is quite important on how we start getting some of our fans back. We saw last week that the All Blacks played in front of 70,000 strong crowd in Wales. So I would like to see the crowds coming back, like 10 years ago that we used to have, whether it was Currie Cup rugby or Super Rugby or Springbok rugby. It just helps the players play, and also it entertains the crowds and the family. It's part of an outing.
But Kennedy, we're going to have to leave it there for now. But thank you so much for your time.